doesn't involve necessarily going to those places, but there's a huge amount you can do just by working the way we started to with these protectors and getting to know them and know that they're not you. They're just a part, and know it's not that judgmental that you've got such an attitude to mirror. Just to begin getting curious about it, getting to know it. It's a very valuable part that has a lot of discernment, like you said. You want it because desperate. It's so judgmental. You don't listen to it.
In fact, it's pops in my head. I can just ask you about it. My mind's right on what you're saying, but something occurred to me as you said it, which is if I were to, for instance, really feel the feeling of like, hey, that's really screwed up, like that's not actually this point in our judgment, that is the role confusion.
That when you're looking at a person or a political party or issue in the world, you hear from these conflicted parts. They each have perspective, just like our country did. Here's from these conflicted parts. Yeah, but you don't have a lot of access to one by itself in those contexts. You want to see what's his clarity. So, again, as I was saying, you and Martha, we're talking about how there are times where you
was thinking about that the whole event, and I was just like, the big question is like, can they make Alexa cool again? And I didn't come away from that event feeling like an affirmative, yes, they can. You know, it was just the typical voice demos on stage. There's some things that were promising, like, okay, so I'll give them credit. It's interesting that it's going to be able to take actions for you. So instead of just doing, you know, Alexa set a timer, Alexa play music, you know, it should be more human-like, and then you can do things like, say, text mom, I'm on my way, or what else? There's so many examples. They had crazy ones like get a mechanic. Yeah, get a mechanic to the house to fix my oven, and then you can upload documents to it, like your kid's soccer schedule, and it'll remind you like, hey, Jimmy, you're bringing oranges on Thursday, and so they just want to know everything about you, and then they want to be able to take actions for you, and that's their assistant vision.
Jennifer Patterson too was excited about that. She just reviewed a giant screen that does your family's, soccer and lessons schedule and everything in the kitchen. Skylight. Thank you, Doc. You know about Skylight.
Katie has one. Well, my manager at UCAM, she has one in her house, and I love it, and I kind of want one, but I don't know, like I just want one just because it looks really cool and it does work.
So you know what I did? I'm
responsible to pick up our niece or whatever. So
I ordered the 21-inch Amazon Echo. There's a 21-inch screen, which is basically like the Skylight. And because this is one of the new features of Alexa Plus is this, AI-generated calendaring thing. By the way, it'll be $19.99 a month, which is a lot, unless you're an Amazon Prime member, and then it's free.
So nobody will pay $19.99 a month for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Prime is like $14 a month.
Exactly. I did the math, so it's $139 a year for Prime, and it's $240 a year if you get it on its own. So
Who's going to do that?
it's a little fishy. I think either they'll increase the cost of Prime, because it hasn't gone up since 2022, which is a lot's happened since 2022. We got inflation. We're in a whole new world. And then the other thing they could do is they could only add the coolest features to the paid version. You know, like ChatGPT.
Yeah, there might be a difference. Yeah.
There might be a difference, and they were just trying to hype it and not make it so all the press people like me were harping on, the differences between the two. So they're just trying to be positive, but I think that we'll get more information about what's offered and where in probably the next couple of weeks or months.
I could see them offer it through Prime for maybe even a year or two, and then slowly start to separate those things.
Get you hooked.
Kind of like the same way they do with Prime Video now. So you get Prime Video still as part of Prime. But if you don't want to watch ads, you have to pay more.
Right.
And so they're starting to give you some stuff. They get you hooked, exactly, and then they offer you an add-on subscription for this and that and Ring and whatnot. So I think they've gotten pretty good. They've gotten pretty good at using Prime to get people into the door. And for this, I think that's actually the most interesting thing about Alexa Plus. It's for the first time a voice assistant, LLM-powered voice assistant, new generation of voice assistant that's available to millions of users out of the gate, and they don't have to go to like a chatbot web interface anymore. They don't have to like install something else. It's just going to be there for them, for a lot of people, and it's going to be free. So a lot more people are going to be exposed to this type of stuff.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem so far with Echo has always been, this is going to sound so mean. I know a lot of muggles who have Echo because it was the cheapest entry-level assistant device. But because of that's the baseline clientele, most people only know to check notifications for their package. Like, they don't even use it to order stuff like Amazon thought they were going to do. I did in the beginning. I got a couple missed shipments, and I was like, you know what? It's easier for me to do it on my phone. Right? Before
I order all the time because I run out of razor blades, and I go, hey, order me some razor blades. And then she says, this is what you ordered last time. This shows you 3 or 4. Would you like me to order those again? I say yes. And it says, what's your, code? I say my code, and then it's done. I think it's pretty good. But Amazon themselves said nobody does this. Amazon says nobody does this. So I'm just
right. So that part, I think it works, but I think a lot of moguls don't do that. So I've used it to order things before, and I do, find out when packages are coming. But other than that, I think the primary thing I use Echo for is to do conversions that I can't do in my head. just because I'm in the
I do
kitchen.
timers for cooking. We do, Lisa and I both do, because it's in the kitchen.
Yes, I have the echo in the kitchen and a dot in the living room, and we have a big echo down here that we don't use anymore because the HomePod sounds better. The HomePod sounds better.
It's not great for music, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, legit, like it literally became notifications and timers. So if they get with this, seemingly with the demo, seems like some things that you might be able to get not just the muggles in, but other people in. But Yanko's right, because of this device that you can get into for $19, anybody can get it. It doesn't require a $1,500 bill or $1,000.
Do you think people want AI in the house?
Well, they're gonna have it. Also, that.
You may not want it, but you're gonna get it.
But that's the thing. Like we all bought the smart speaker at one point. Like I have more Google devices around my house, but the same thing. Like you can put timer, they have to put a weather, and that's pretty much it. You know, you like to play the music. But it's also because they're so bad at any added complexity. And you just make that a little bit better. And some of the demos that they showed are pretty promising, right? So this whole thing, even like home device control, where they were like, well, play music everywhere, but don't wake up the baby. And then it detects from that they shouldn't use the speaker in the nursery without you having to explicitly say, oh, play it in this zone and move the music into that room and that device has this name now. It got so complex with all these things. Like
Typical stuff, right? Real sore throat. Then the sneezing begins. Then the spigots open and you're drowning in a sea of snot. And it's been that way, and then of course went to my chest, and that's where it is now, residing in my chest. And I've been drinking abnormally large amounts of spectrant, you know, and coughing up what appear to be small, hopefully irrelevant organs and stuff. And so that's my condition to that. I've got a hell of a cold. In a moment, Richard C. Hoagland in the next hour. George Lutz, the Amityville George Lutz, somebody I have always wanted to interview since I've been doing this program, the original, real George Lutz from the Amityville house. He's the family that moved in after the DeFeo murders, the Lutz family, and they're the ones that the movie was about, the book and everything, and so tonight we'll get the real story. A couple of things that are going on that are noteworthy, certainly, in North Korea. Wonder if that names could be right, huh? A defiant North Korea ordered UN nuclear inspectors out of the country Friday, said it would restart a lab capable of producing plutonium for nuclear weapons, so they're not even hiding. But the UN nuclear watchdog said its inspectors are going to stay right where they are. The White House announced the expulsions, but said that military action was not being contemplated. I mean, here we have a country that has the means to build nuclear weapons, and they have just announced they're going to do it, and they're throwing out the UN inspectors to build nuclear weapons, and we are not contemplating military action. Whereas in Iraq, we're doing more than contemplation. We've ordered a major military force to the Persian Gulf in prep for a possible war with Iraq. Why? Because of perceived weapons of mass destruction, building and storing and stuff, right? So, case A, Korea, we do nothing. We don't even contemplate doing anything when they say they're doing it. Case B, where we're not sure they're even doing it, we're going to have a war. And then this, ushering in either a brave new world or a spectacular hoax. A company founded by a religious sect that believes in space aliens and else Friday. It in fact has produced the world's first cloned baby. Cesarean section, they say. Bridget Volsier, that little French pixie that heads up that organization that I've interviewed in the past when they said she conceived. Not Bridget, but the American. Came on, I did an interview with Bridget, and she talked about why they were doing what they were doing, what they expected. Their expectations said they had it done. Now they say it's happened. In a moment, Richard C. Hoagland begins the... Oh, there is one important thing that I announce, and that is this is your final opportunity. As you know, this Keith Rowland and the website www.artbell.com, where there are some new ghost photographs tonight, Christmas-type ghosts. Keith has been with me for years and years and years and years and years. And on Tuesday, with the ending of the current year, the beginning of the next year, which we will begin with predictions and a review of predictions made last year at the same time. Keith, who's been with me all this time, and the Art Bell website go down forevermore. Well, maybe someday I'll bring it back up as a ham radio website or something, I don't know. I own the domain. So it's going down forever, and the new website takes over. Now, you can get a commemorative set of CDs that memorialize this website and a lot of the stuff that was on it over so many years. And this is about your last chance to do so. Now, the way to do it is to go to artbell.com. You can't miss it. You know, it's your last chance. These will not be for sale after the stroke of midnight. Or after the show, actually at midnight on January 1st, they will go off sale. You will not be able to get them. Come hook or crook or whatever, you can't get them. So this is your last chance. I suggest you go to artbell.com and scarf them up between now and the beginning of the year. Rushing toward us now, I might add. Okay. Ergonomics Richard C. Hoagland, a good friend for a lot of years on this program, a whole lot of years, and he was at one time advisor to Walter C. Cronkite, and he was an advisor to NASA, and he won the Engstrom Science Award, and he's been invaluable as a part of this program. He will continue to be a part of this program, and he was the man who watched with Walter as the U.S. went to the moon. So we've been to the moon, and we're contemplating a trip to Mars to find out if so many things that Richard's talked about are true or not. And we've done all this, and still, we haven't conquered the damn common cold. Maybe you could explain that one, Mr. Science.
Good evening, Art.
Good evening. I've been thinking a lot about that, Richard. I mean, here we are, cloning a human baby, right? If it's true. We still haven't conquered the cold.
Well, there are some things, but one has to take them very early. It's the first sign. I thought I was coming down with one a couple of days ago, and I took something called oxalicoxanum, which is a naturopathic remedy.
I don't know if I believe in all that, Richard. I mean, yeah, you didn't come down with it.
I didn't come down with it.
Maybe the answer is you weren't really coming down with it.
Well, it had all the symptoms.
Well,
we don't want to bore people with our symptoms, do we?
Well, I do want to know about why we haven't done anything about the. Well, you're saying we have, but
I'm saying we have. You just have to look in the right places.
Okay.
I'm sorry you feel bad.
That's right. Sure.
You know, it's bizarre. I've been thinking all day after you called me and said, I want to do something tonight, and I thought, what the heck are we going to talk about?
Well, we're about, I mean, time is short.
Because, well, we've hit all the specifics. Everybody knows the landscape. What I wanted to do in the little time we have left, this is our last show, is to be a little more philosophical. I'd like to turn the tables. I'd like to review you on a couple of things.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, all right, fine.
Okay? Like, you that the realtor told us after we toured the house.
It was a pretty good price, right?
The market, it had been on the market for, I believe, 100,000 or so, and by then it had been reduced, if I remember correctly, to 90. We made an offer of 80, and they accepted it.
Really? What do you think, George? What do you think market value was for that house then? Real market value?
Well, the house was 4,000 feet. It had a boathouse that would take easily a 36-foot boat at the time. It had a 2-car garage attached to that, a heated pool, a full basement. My guess would be then realistically 125,000 would have been not unheard of.
All right. Then, so at some point you must have asked yourself, or the realtor, hey, how come? Maybe after you consummated the deal, how come it's so cheap? Or when did you find out 6 people had been murdered there?
After she showed it to us, and it was obvious that Kathy had fallen in love with it, and I liked it very much. She said, I don't know if I should have told you this before I showed it to you or after, but this is the house the DeFeos were murdered in. And we kind of looked at it like, what do you mean? And then she reminded us of the news stories that had been a year earlier, and the trial that was just, I guess, in the process of starting or was going on.
All right. For those who don't remember, can you tell us about the DeFeo murders? I mean, this DeFeo fellow said that I think at the time he claimed that he heard voices telling him to kill his family, right?
Ronald DeFeo was eventually convicted, yes, of killing his mom, dad, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters.
And for that, he served
while they were in the sleep, and while they were asleep.
Went around with a shotgun and dispatched them, I think.
It was a Marlin 36 caliber rifle.
Yeah. Okay. And he's now serving, I think, 6
consecutive life terms, supposedly with no possibility for parole, but a hearing comes up every year or so.
I imagine the house had been cleaned up. There was no sign of the massacre that occurred there.
Oh, no, nothing like that. The house showed like any house would.
And George, you're looking at it, you're looking at the water thinking, oh my God, yes.
Well, it was coordinated that he would come in the day that we actually had the closing that afternoon.
Gotcha.
So we were moving in when he showed up to do that.
And so, boom, here he comes and begins what? Moving through the house to bless. I don't know how that's done.
Well, I hadn't actually even seen him arrive, and I hadn't seen him since I had seen him in his office. That I recall now when I think back about it. This is the first time I've seen him in months. I talked to him quite a bit, but he was on the phone. So here he is going into the house, and I waved. I was in the back of the truck unloading the U-Haul, and a number of our friends, and even one of Jimmy's brothers was there helping unload the stuff and moving it into the house.
Sure.
Weekday. We were a little bit behind because after we closed on the finances in New York, you do real estate a different way than you do out here. You go to a closing and they have their attorney, and the bank has an attorney or a representative, and you have your own attorney, and they all sit there and they write everything up right then and there.
Sure.
And the title company has someone. It's a different process than it is anywhere else that I've seen. Well, we had forgotten to get the key at the closing, so we had to go back and find the realtor and go back and get the key, and so we could actually get in the house.
Right.
There are all these people waiting around to help us move in. So he showed up, and we were quite behind time. It's starting to get dark. It's November. And so I waved at him. He went on in, found Kathy, and went about blessing the house.
Which means what? You go to from room to room, that kind of thing?
Yes, he went room to room, said prayers in each room, using holy water, and there are, I guess there's a house blessing that they do. I'm not privy to the words.
Nor am I. But very interesting. All right, stand by, George. We're already at the bottom of the first hour. It goes very quickly. George Lutz is my guest. He's the man, along with his family, who lived the real Amityville horror. And as the
Voices, the things like odors coming and going, or Kathy being touched from behind by some unseen person, or Missy talking to herself and asking questions like Jody telling us about her imaginary friend that wasn't so imaginary, it turns out.
yeah, she claimed to have an imaginary friend, right?
Yes, and she would come and ask Kathy questions like, do angels talk? And Jody is name of the angel, and Jody is telling Missy that we're going to live there forever. Strange things. It's kind of off-putting. Our dog Harry would not go in that room that Mary was talking about earlier. The last night we were in the house was the reason not to stay there anymore. When we called Father Ray the next day, he asked what we were still doing there. He was surprised that we were still even in the house, and it hadn't even occurred to us that, even at that point, to just up and abandon everything and get in the van and leave. That night, Kathy had levitated and moved away from me on the bed.
No, wait a minute. Slow up right there.
Sure.
Kathy levitated.
Yes.
Now, you were both in bed?
Yes.
And you were both awake or both asleep or at the time, or what?
Kathy was asleep.
She was asleep.
And she lifted up off the bed and went towards the wall, away from me.
Huh.
This is after she had turned into an old crone, a really ugly old woman that literally took hours and hours for it to go away.
In front of your face?
Yes, and then later she did that again at her mom's house after we moved out of the house and moved in with her mom.
Oh my God, you're sitting there watching your wife and she turns and, like the picture of Dorian Gray, she almost instantly becomes an old woman?
Yes.
And then that effect remains for hours?
One time it was longer than just a few hours. What happened, Art, was that these things in by themselves, for example, everyone in that house, all my kids and Kathy, slept on their stomachs in that house. After we moved out, we found out that the DeFeo murders, the whole family had slept on their stomachs. They were all murdered in their sleep. None of them got up. None of them got out of bed or were awakened, evidently, by the sounds of the rifle going off, killing all 6 of them. There were no drugs found in their bodies in the autopsy. And they were all sleeping face down. I was the only one that could not sleep face down in that house. I never slept face down before that, and I certainly couldn't do it there.
Through all of this, George, did you ever question your own sanity? I mean, we don't often look at our wives and see them become a 90-year-old woman instantly and then have that remain for hours. I mean, we just don't. Did you question your own sanity?
Sure. Many, many times in many different ways.
What about the effect on Kathy? Kathy, was she questioning your sanity or her own, or were you beginning to understand it wasn't the house?
Kathy was damaged in a different. Each of us were affected in a different way, and I think Kathy was damaged in a different way than I was, and I think that for her, in so many ways, it was much harder for her to recover over the years and be able to put it in a place, so to speak, give it some distance, even after moving to California and then later on to Arizona. There were times when she was much more sensitive than I was.
Do you think she's all right with it now? Has she come to terms now with it, or is it still bad word haunting her?
When we did the special for the History Channel 2 years ago, and that interview was some 8 hours, and she was hooked up to oxygen. She has a disorder a breathing disorder called valley fever that is quite serious, quite debilitating, and right now she's still in a form of a hospital that deals with respiratory diseases.
Yeah, I saw the oxygen tubes.
Yeah, she's had a relapse since then. That was a very hard day for her. The interview was, I think, something like 8.5 hours, and then afterwards we went out to dinner. So it was a long day for her, and there were times when certain questions will come up and be worded in a certain way that are really, you can see the effect on her, sure, but that happens to me as well. It's not a comfortable subject. It's not something that has a lot of humor in it.
Yeah.
And humor is the one thing that does make it less strong, less affecting of you.
Yes, I understand that. I use it myself.
It is a wonderful tool to deal with this kind of thing.
The movie, of course, dramatized the ooze out of the walls and the flies and all the rest of that.
The flies were real.
The flies. Tell me about that.
Flies were. This is the winter time, and the back bedroom, that one sewing room, had flies from the day we moved in, and they became more and more and more. And they were there when the investigators went in, just on the back window, and that's the same window that Mary saw the, I guess you'd call it an apparition or a person from looking up at it. Flies were always there.
They were
They'd
always
go away. You'd kill them and they'd still come back.
really. So that part was real.
Not the oozing out of the walls.
Not the oozing out.
But that was it's one of those things that fact is, and sometimes in my mind at least, stranger than fiction. What really happened that I think they tried to draw that from. What really happened in the house was that there were keyholes, old style doors. The house was built in the 30s and it had old style keyholes.
I remember them. Yes.
We had drips that got longer and longer. They were black. They were almost like an epoxy. And the longer we were in the house, the longer the drips came out of certain keyholes in the second and third floor.
Oh, so there was some basis in truth.
Yes, but not the oozing out of the walls.
Not the oozing, but something.
And then we would wake up in the morning and we would find this gelatin-like substance going from room to room. And you would think, well, the kids got into Jell-O or somebody did something. But there was no Jell-O in the house at the time, and the kids didn't do that. And it was sticky, and it was there. It was there for the...
So what did you do with this stuff? Just try and clean it up, or
Well, it was like spots. It wasn't like a big mess of some kind. It trapped for room to room. We had to wipe it up.
And just move on. So that was occurring every day.
No, you couldn't depend on anything. The one thing, thank God, is the lights didn't go out. At no time did they would flicker, but they did not go out.
They would flicker though.
Yeah.
And so I guess I see what you mean by a three-ring circus. All of this kind of thing was going on.
Well, I'm sorry, I strayed from where I was going before. One of the things was that I would be laying there then on my back, and everyone else would be asleep, the house would be quiet, and I'd be getting ready to go to sleep, and I would hear, or I would be already asleep, and I would wake up to a sound of musicians like tuning up downstairs.
Really?
And I would think that a clock radio went off and it was off the station or something like that. And there is no clock radio down there, but that's the first thing that comes to your mind. You know what else it could be? Go down there, and there'd be no noise, and the dog would be asleep. Right.
The final night that you spent in that house, you never talked about noise. You refused to talk about the last night in the house. Why?
What happens, Art, is when you do that, the worst of it comes back. It's not like it disappeared. It's not like I can detach myself from it and just talk about it like what I did yesterday. You feel it. Not all of it, thank God, but it comes back and it's not a pleasant experience. I was laying there in bed, happy, levitated. I had to grab her to keep her from going off the bed.
There is no question in your mind, George. You weren't dreaming this. You weren't asleep. I mean, it's an obvious question. Yeah.
No, there's no question. We were so very pleased 3 years later to have Chris Goona come along and give us a polygraph test, each of us, in his office with Michael Rice.
I was not aware that had been done.
Yes, and one of the questions, it's a long process. It's not like you walk in, strap on the machine, and go.
Oh, yeah.
You have to agree to the questions. They have to run a baseline. They do a physiological workup to get within that baseline so that they can get the real responses.
Yes.
Chris Goona had taught the use of the polygraph. He was considered number 2 and number 3 man in the world at the time. He had taught the use of polygraph throughout the world for the armed forces, for the Army, for their intelligence people. He had, I don't know, I think God, but comes back and it's about a plug of experience. I would laying there in that bed, and I would think,
been instructed personally by the head guy at the FBI.
So that was one of the questions he asked?
One of the questions was, did you levitate? One of the questions was, did Kathy turn into an old woman?
And you answered them all and went sailing past the polygraph?
Absolutely. Later, those findings were published in the National Star, of all things. It was one of those things where the movie company was getting ready to release the movie, and they wanted to do this, and these are expensive tests.
Oh, I'm well aware.
They were willing to pay for it. We said, get us the best there is, and we'll do it. Otherwise, we're not interested in doing it with someone that just got out of school.
All
You
right.
get 5 questions. They have to be yes or no. And that, you get one shot at doing this thing right. It's not like you have...
Well, George, people who are lying usually don't agree to a polygraph. That's for damn sure. George, hold on. We're at the bottom of the hour. George Lutz, who with his family lived the Amityville Horror, is my guest. And tonight you're hearing the real story of what happened in that home. From the high desert, I'm Art Bell.
East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at 1-775-727-1222. Or use the wildcard line at 1-775-727-1295. To reach Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the Premier Radio Network.
Tonight you're hearing what really happened at Amityville. My guest is George Lutz. Can you imagine? I'm going to ask in a moment. I want to go back to it. Can you imagine looking at your wife and seeing her instantly becoming an old woman, a very old woman, a 90-year-old or better woman? Once again, here's George Lutz. George, when you saw Kathy become a 90-year-old woman or better suddenly, I can't even imagine what would have gone through your mind. I mean, it would have been like, out of this house now, gone. I'm out of here, running out of here, actually. But to see that happen to your wife, apparently more than once?
Yes.
Yeah, more than once. I mean, what went through your mind? Aside from questioning your own sanity, once you realized this really was going on, what did you think was happening?
What occurs to me to answer you right now is that I'm thinking, how do we fix this? What caused this? But not putting it together with the house as such.
Did you think you were seeing your wife as an old woman, or did you think you were seeing something else?
It didn't occur to us until much later that the house never really wanted us to leave. We would always invite people over. We would have, but we would go out of our way not to leave, not to go out someplace. While we were there, we had enrolled in a upholstery course at the local high school.
That's what these folks do, you folks.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And we never went to any of the classes. I mean, Kathy went out and bought the material to recover the dining room set that we had bought from the DeFeo estate. But we never
that's right.
just don't go out.
Yeah, that's a curious thing. You did buy a number of things from the DeFeo estate from the house, right? Why did you do that? Just because it was a really good buy, or I mean, what was the reason?
Well, let's start with, we had two houses. Not both of us liked each other's furniture. We had garage sales at Kathy's house. We had garage sales at my house.
Slender Man.
And now we're moving into a 4,000 square foot house, and we're going to fill it up if we can with some stuff. They made us a deal we kind of couldn't sort of refuse.
Yep, gotcha.
And they had nice stuff. It wasn't like this was blood splattered or anything. It was,
Good stuff.
yeah. Dining room set was extraordinary. The kitchen set was lovely. Some of the dressers that were up in Missy's room were fine. There was no reason not to buy all of that. It was there.
Please insert
You know,
ticket.
and really, if you're buying the house,
Please
and you're walking to that
$6.
happen, then
Please insert
what's
credit
the difference
card.
between that and the furniture
The
or
$6.
whatever?
Well,
The $6. Please insert credit card. Remove credit card. Please wait.
It was one of those
Thank.
things that was
Press the red button for receipt.
What happened at the closing was that they had...
Thank you. Please collect your receipt.
The estate had filled up the oil tank, which was almost another $2,000.
Thank you.
And cash that was needed right then and there, too. So the actual cash out of pocket at the closing, including the furniture and everything, was about $24,000. On the last night that we were in there, I wasn't able to get up out of bed. There was a storm going on as far as we were concerned as a family in the house while we were awake.
A storm in the house?
So while we were in the house, there was a storm going on right around outside. Okay, big storm. Later, it has been said that there was no storm there. Well, we know what we experienced. As far as we're concerned, there was an incredible storm that night. The boys' beds were being lifted up and slammed down overhead of me, but I could not get up out of bed to go up and deal with that or stop it or see what was going on. What about Kathy? That's when Kathy was levitating and moving away from me and turning off. Kathy was mostly asleep that night. So I had brought Harry or all and tied him to the master bedroom door for him to stay there right there. And he kept getting up, walking in circles, throwing up, and then come back to sleep again.
When you say you couldn't get up, you say you didn't sleep on yourself.
I could not get up.
And this was not this night, had you been talking to Kathy at all privately? I would assume you would have conversations with Kathy about what was going on aside from the children.
Yes, and she would tell me what Missy would say to her. The boys were treating each other differently than they had before we moved in there. Everyone kind of went to their own stages at times. For each of us, we learned later it was a different experience at times in the house. It wasn't like we all experienced everything in unison or saw the same things or heard the same things.
Well, that's the next question I was going to ask. Do you have any knowledge, which I asked you about your own state of mind and whether you were perhaps being pushed to do something awful or felt moments of that? I wonder if since you found out that anybody else in the family was being pushed in one way or the other.
You need to ask me that again a different way. Sorry, I don't want to answer the way that I am assuming what you're asking me.
Are you now aware that anybody else in your family was being affected in a particularly negative way, perhaps to the degree that they might have done something awful? And if you don't want to answer that,
No, I'm not aware of that. No, that's not. Boys were little.
unfortunately,
tried to talk to Ray a number of times. We got phone static, got hung up on, unable to call him from the house. I would go to my office and I'd be able to talk to him and tell him what was going on. We asked him to come back to the house. Once he hadn't worked. Then when we got through to him the next morning, after our last night there, and he asked us why we were still there, that's when it was slammed home. You gotta leave. He's not coming here. He's not going to do anything, and we're not going through anymore.
Well, did he ever break down and actually tell you what he really thought about that house? Now, obviously, if he said, well, you're still there like that.
Yes,
And then,
what was happening?
yeah, what did he say?
His words were almost parallel to Father Malachi's in some ways. He said they knew about the house, meaning the Archdiocese, the Catholic Church.
Oh.
That they knew that there had been things that had gone on when the DeFeos had had a mass set, which may have very well triggered what went on for them, just like having the house blessed for us. When I heard, and I never heard the words myself on your show that Father Malachi said, but when I heard that he said the church knew about this,
Yes.
that was not a surprise to me. It was a surprise that he said it on the air live, because the church has denied and denied and denied the existence of evil in the house at that time.
Well, George, Father Martin admitted and said a lot of things that the church, as an organization, would not be linked to. Father Martin was close to a couple of popes. He was way up in the Catholic Church at one point. Father Martin said things about the Church and the Vatican itself that I'm sure the Vatican would have preferred he not say. But
that was, I considered that truly a heroic act.
Oh, indeed.
When I heard that, because the church has gone to great lengths in different interviews and at different times to deny that there was, that there was any validity to this thing. And for him to say that and know it, and I've heard this from other priests privately over the years, but the church has never, said, look, we knew there was a problem with the DeFeos in that house, and we believe that there's something really wrong there.
It's a strange thing, George, when you think about it a little bit. My wife is a non-practicing Catholic. I'm not a Catholic, and I think I'm
the greatest respect around the country.
Oh, that's very
world
kind.
about these kinds of things.
Well, I surely appreciate your having contacted me.
And there's another side to this, and you and I spoke of this.
Yes.
The part about Father Malachi Martin was very important to me. I haven't been able to verify it with your archives. It's just my inability to find the right program when he said that. And when he exposed it for what it was, and that was very important to me. But also that over the years there have been some, I don't have another way to put it, real loud-mouthed people about, calling this a hoax, and it's not a hoax. And I've gotten to the point where I'm really tired of even hearing that.
Yeah, I never thought it was a hoax, George. What that's worth.
It's the kind of thing that has hurt my family for a long time, and I've gotten to a place mentally or spiritually with it all that just says, bring it on, because this is what happens. This is the truth. These things happen, and I understand why people don't talk about them when they do happen to them. In my own opinion, I would do fiction books based on fact and factual books, anything at all to expose the existence of this stuff, to get people to read about it and question it.
All right. I've got somebody else you might know on the phone. Joel Martin. Joel was the Long Island correspondent for the Associated Press at the time of the DeFeo massacre. The first reporter actually to arrive at the scene of those murders. Joel, hi. Thank you for getting to us. You're on the air, Joel.
Good morning, Art.
Good morning.
Hi, Joel.
Nice to talk to you. Yes, hello, George.
I haven't, you and I have really never met.
No, we were on the History Channel special together, and we talked on the phone years ago, but somehow we kept missing each other.
We were on the Lou Gentili show, but
yes, on the Lou Gentili show recently as well.
Yes.
And as you know, I was the first reporter there that horrible night in November of 1974, and I saw one of the dead bodies, and later was questioned by the DA, and then, became involved with the side of the story that all of the hoax, as you just referred to. And I, had years and years of listening to Stevie.
I know almost everybody is probably asking it, so in that way, I'm to avoid questions on the air. Let's review. I'll tell you what. Let's review what's going on in the world first. It's never any good. Scott Peterson arrested, as you know by now, I'm sure, Friday in the death of his wife Lacey, who was 8 months pregnant when she vanished on Christmas Eve. That arrest coming as authorities confirmed the two bodies that washed ashore this week were in fact Lacey and her baby. He may face, with options, the death penalty for this.
But called to her home city and saw her doctor. Immediately started her on antibiotics and she didn't have the phone.
And you and your mother were not required to put on gowns and masks when here?
No. And no one around had gowns and masks on. No one was required to do anything but wash their hands before entering and leaving the room. There was no barrier of any type to protect us from any airborne virus particles. Where did the healthy young North Carolina mother get 1-2 stars? Why did her mother get pneumonia, but the visiting sister remained healthy? Why did more than 200 residents of the Amoy Gardens high-rise apartments in Hong Kong track stars, while others in surrounding apartment buildings did not? In addition, close contact with infected patients. How else do coronavirus spreading? Yesterday, I asked Dr. David Seaman, Executive Director of Communicativeness, the World Health Organization, in Geneva, Switzerland.
What we understand from Hong Kong is that what has occurred in the Amoy Gardens is possibly their study related to their sewage department. In other words, they have found that patients in Hong Kong, and in fact patients around the world, experience the virus and also insurance. So there's what's happened is that there's encouragement evidence somehow that patients, people who now have it.
If the SARS virus saw toilet seats or other surfaces where infected urine and feces are, how long is it contagious? I asked that question this morning to Albert Osterhaus, veterinarian and director of the Department of Virology at Erasmus Medical Center in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. The team announced this week that monkeys exposed to the coronavirus, collected from SARS patients, became ill with the same SARS symptoms seen in humans.
Can remain accused for a certain period of time. We don't have the exact figure yet. What I can tell you is that we know from other coronaviruses, animal coronaviruses, that they have remained infectious in material from patients, like stools or let's say day. It depends on the environmental temperature. So if it's very warm, then the virus will break much more rapidly than when it's, let's say, around zero.
So the coronavirus SARS, if it's like the other, could be viable as contagious agent for several days.
That's not impossible.
How far they could spread it for how long?
Well, that's what we don't know. Our concern is that it would continue to spread and become another human disease, not the last time that's going to be like tuberculosis and AIDS. What we hope is contained and stopped and not it's a very serious disease, especially for health workers who are the first in line to get infected because they're taking care of infected patients.
No one's ever seen this coronavirus before, so they have been some bioterrorist creation.
Our laboratory that met yesterday here in Geneva felt that this is in no way an engineered virus. This is a naturally occurring virus. Now the question is, where did it come from?
And in other words, which animals in Guangdong province, China, were the first hosts way this is spreading, even though it is not as contagious as the influenza, for example, the swine flu pandemic that ended up killing more than 20 million people on the planet, they don't see anything like that happening with SARS. The mortality rate is only about 4% on the average. But what they are seeing are a continual increase in cases, and a point that you made at the top of the show is that there is some suggestion that it might mutate a little bit. I asked Dr. Osterhaus about that today. He said that there is no hard evidence yet.
Linda, we're running out.
Okay, but what they don't know is if it did change, would it get worse or would it get better? And this is, stay tuned, it has to play itself out on the planet.
Well, she says, stay tuned. Linda, that's always.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pretty scary stuff. Take care, Linda Moulton-Howe, and keep listening. Stay tuned. That is scary stuff. Acute respiratory. All right, let's take a break. Then we'll talk about programmable atoms. How's that for a while? Programmable atoms. I just I'm Mark Bell.
we want to be very, very careful about.
Why?
Well, the vision of nanotechnology, what we're talking about there basically are very, very small machines which operate at the molecular level and which are capable of moving and manipulating individual atoms.
All right, that's important. And not to be confused with what we're going to talk about yet tonight, hacking atoms or actually changing molecular structure, I guess is the way to put it. In other words, not what you're going to talk about later, but this is nanotechnology.
We'll be talking about programmable matter, which involves no moving parts other than electrons.
Right. All unnatural, sort of. But with nanotechnology, little machines. Now, what are you concerned? I've heard about gray goo, for example.
Right, and that was first proposed by Eric Drexler as a concern with nanotechnology, because the problem is these machines are so small, they can manipulate things on a very, very tiny scale, which is good, but that's not very noticeable to us here in the real world unless you have a very large number of these machines that are doing that. If you wanted them to produce sugar, for example, one machine producing sugar molecules, it could produce sugar, for 1 million years, and you wouldn't notice because it's so small. The amount of sugar that it's producing would be small. So the idea that a lot of people talk about with nanotechnology is to have this machine first build many copies of itself. So the machine would go into a reproduction cycle where it would make multiple copies of itself, and then once there were enough of these machines around, then they would start to produce the actual product that you were interested in, whether it's sugar or some other molecule, or even
billions of little sugar makers, and all with instructions to duplicate themselves. Now, of course, I guess the slip would come if the duplication order wasn't quite clear to the little machine. And
when to stop.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, it could make sugar finally, theoretically, at the expense of everything.
Sure, or make more copies of itself at the expense of everything. And this was what Drexler called the gray goo problem. It's also sometimes referred to as the Sorcerer's Apprentice problem from Fantasia, where Mickey Mouse is producing these endless streams of buckets and rooms that are trying to do his work for him, but they obviously there are more and more and more of them, and it stops being about doing what he wants. It starts being about the overwhelming reproduction of the object.
Well, you're right about the scientists that are doing this stuff now. What's your view with regard to how they can be controlled? Or should they be controlled? Should the government or some oversight, something or another, committee of whoever, somehow control, what areas they do and what instructions they give them? One day, probably out of San Francisco, no doubt, they come marching these army of sugar gatherers, and everything's turning to gray goo and some of the gray goops.
Yeah, well, I think we want to be careful in a lot of ways. Certainly the government has a role, industry has a role, the researchers themselves, I think, should be and in general are concerned with safety and common sense, things like that. The main thing though is just to design these things in an extremely fail-safe way. We see the same thing with nuclear power now, that the current nuclear reactor design, nuclear power has a very bad name now, and that's not entirely undeserved, because reactor designs like Chernobyl really are very bad designs. They're kind of designed to go wrong. There are much better ways to design a reactor than that, so it's virtually impossible for it to melt down. Almost no matter what you do, you turn off the coolant, you pull the control rods out. But the heat from the reactor itself will cause the radioactive materials to expand and therefore push themselves apart.
And then they're getting a very bad rap because we're not building them because we're scared of them.
Right, and we could build a lot safer reactors, and then the fear of nuclear energy would be much reduced. In the same way with nanotechnology, certainly you can proceed in a very dangerous way if you're not careful, and that's not a good idea, and we need to avoid that at all costs because the consequences are very serious.
But here we're talking about science, not so easily controlled. Somebody in a laboratory in Weehawken can produce something that will eat San Francisco eventually. How do you control that?
Well, right now it's
sort of beyond our reach right now. Somebody we couldn't produce a molecular scale machine that was capable of reproducing itself.
Yes.
Hopefully by the time that becomes possible, first of all, we will have educated people about the risks, so that everyone will be aware of it and concerned about it. Also, potentially, as I talk about in some of my science fiction, we have our bodies are constantly under assault from very small, scale reproducing machines, which we call bacteria and viruses.
I didn't say anything.
These are things which want to turn us.
This is also my wife's car. This Nissan Altima that's masquerading as a van. I'll get behind you.
To protect areas, to protect cities, even to protect whole planets.
Flexing on my little cool van.
Technology, counter technology.
Cool van all around me. Breaking into WSB. Welcome south, brother.
How many years away from the need for that kind of protection? Do you imagine, I think the right science be able to reach out and imagine, are we? I mean, how many more years before somebody is capable of producing some little thing that can replicate it?
Or gun safety. They've got Martin made this concept.
That fucker hit me. Cack parking. Good old cack. That's what I need in my life. More cack. Made inside.
perfect example, because right now we have a lot of energy management issues in a house. We have light, we have heat.
That's right.
Those are the two big ones. We have a few other things as well. During the day, we get light into our houses through windows, and these are holes in the wall which have glass put in them, and they're a particular size, they're a particular shape, they're a particular color, which, as you say, is clear. Not completely clear, but fairly clear.
Yeah.
If our entire wall were made out of programmable matter, then we could make part of the wall transparent any place that we wanted. And as you say, potentially very transparent, maybe completely invisible. And we could make the window any size we wanted, any shape we wanted. We could put it any place on the wall we wanted. We could even move it. For example, you could have a window that moved across your wall to track the sun as it moved across the sky.
This is really going to affect the housing market, Will.
Sure. You can change the color of your window, too. You can make it a stained glass window if you want, or even a stained glass cartoon that moves.
The problem with this is that I see, Will, we're going to be so enamored of this. We're going to love it so much that we're going to end up living in this damn matrix. This matrix that's not quite real. It's not the original atomic structure. Is that our future? Is that where we're headed? I mean, we're going to be headed toward this matrix of not quite reality as we used to know it?
Well, I don't think it's quite the matrix, because in the matrix, you're looking at something that's entirely imaginary and being sort of projected into your brain. Right. Here we are talking about something that's physically real. You can touch it in your hand. You can pick it up.
Well, doesn't that make it in a way more of a matrix, because it's all tangible, but as it was, I guess, a matrix was tangible for them, but it's not really the real problem. And yet it's so good, nobody in their right mind could ever not use it and not use the technology. They just, well, maybe if you guys up the mountain climb, aside from that, everybody's going to go for it.
I think everybody is going to go for it, and I think that it's true that you lose something in the translation. The world isn't quite the same, it's not quite as authentic, but in a way, it's better.
It's better.
Kinds of technology, we've always invented technology for as long as humans have been on this planet. You can see in archaeological evidence that people have always tried to manipulate their environment. They've always tried to make things that existed without human action. And we do this in an effort to make ourselves more comfortable, to make ourselves more powerful.
And
our environment doesn't overwhelm us.
And entertain ourselves. You said it yourself, TV. A lot of people spend 4 or 5 hours every single day plastered in front of a one-eyed monster, escaping otherwise reality. So how big a step for them is it from that, or from going to a movie or other escapisms, into something as tangible as you're talking about, which is a whole, in essence, artificial, comfortable, really cool world.
Well, I do want to shy away from the word artificial, because it is real.
Well,
this is a world that you actually inhabit, not something that you watch on TV and pretend that you inhabit.
Except you can't cause my couch to blink out right now with a click of a mouse button, or whatever in the hell they have 50 years from now. You can't do that.
Well, in the future, I won't be able to cause your couch to disappear either.
Or if my couch gets a virus right now, it doesn't pop out of existence. But in the world you're talking about, some that can happen.
It wouldn't pop out of existence, but it might change into a different material that you didn't like.
Well,
I maybe could make a hard couch virus that would cause your couch to turn to concrete.
Or nails.
Well, not nails. I can't really change the shape.
I see.
Programmable matter, again, you've got a material which doesn't move. It doesn't change size or shape or mass. It just changes composition.
Could you make water? Could you take a brick of that
and turn it into a liquid? No.
No.
I could put artificial atoms inside this brick that were hydrogen and oxygen atoms, and I could have them interact in such a way that they formed something that was very similar to a water molecule, but it would be trapped inside this brick.
But it would just look like water, and I could walk on it, probably, right?
Well, it would look like wet silicon, I think.
This is really intriguing. So, things would look like other things, but you could make them
there'd be lots of functional things like, as we pointed out, or I guess, Windows, or what other applications do you imagine for this? I mean, in everyday life, Will, what other applications would become an everyday artificial item?
Well, staying focused on the home for a few minutes.
Sure.
Light fixtures that we have in our homes right now are actually quite inconvenient. They're called fixtures because they're fixed. They don't move. They're in a particular location.
That's right.
They've got these light bulbs in them which can burn out, and we have to go up there and unscrew things to replace the light bulb. If our ceiling were made out of programmable matter, we could produce light from anywhere on the ceiling. The whole ceiling, if we wanted to, could emit a kind of soft glow. Or we could have spot lighting or track lighting or anything like that.
So the material itself would give off the glow. It would produce the luminescence.
Exactly, and we can pick any color we want. We can pick any mix of colors that we want. So that, for example, we could simulate sunlight from our ceiling.
Really?
Or we could simulate moonlight or firelight or incandescent light or any kind of lighting conditions that you wanted.
How closely would you simulate, for example, sunlight? That's intriguing. Let's say you simulated sunlight. You wouldn't get a sunburn from it.
You could, yeah, absolutely. You could produce ultraviolet light. And just like you can do that right now with a sun lamp. There's nothing magic about reproducing sunlight. You can go down to the hardware store and buy a light bulb right now that will do that, and it will give you a sunburn.
How hot could you tell it to get?
Well, as hot as the material would support. You have a stovetop right now that can get up to several hundred degrees, and in the same way, you could command heating elements to appear in any of these programmable surfaces, which would be capable of heating up to certainly red hot temperatures if you wanted them to. Although the energy would have to come from somewhere.
This is really godlike stuff.
Now, speaking of energy, there's another thing that programmable matter can do for you. People that are working with quantum dots right now in laboratories are looking at ways of making more efficient solar cells. We can harvest energy from the sun right now, but most of us don't. And the reason is it's not very economical.
Not very efficient.
The solar cells that you buy down at the hardware store right now are made out of amorphous silicon, and they're only about 13% efficient,
right?
Meaning that 87% of the energy, of the light energy that strikes them,
is not captured in television.
Exactly. But researchers that are working with quantum dots, they're trying to make quantum dot-based solar cells. And they anticipate that within the next few years, they may be able to make cells that are 50% efficient or better.
That would be the end of the energy crisis as we know it.
Right. With that kind of efficiency, if you had materials like that on the roof of your house, that would meet maybe not all, but most of the energy needs of a typical American home. So there's really substantial difference in the way that we capture and use energy.
So the manipulation of atoms would change probably every single aspect almost of our lives.
I would think so, yeah.
One way or the other.
Yes.
How likely is this science to develop versus, say, nanotechnology, which, by the way, makes many of the same promises, technological promises to get there, but they make a lot of the same promises.
They do make a lot of the same promises, and I think they're good promises. These are promises that we want to take seriously. The real promise is magic. What people have always wanted, what people have always thought is magic. We don't want to have to bang on things, twist things, or press buttons, or flip switches, or light fires. Sometimes we want to do these things, but really, fundamentally, we want a world that doesn't bother us, that doesn't get in our way. We want to do what we want to do, and we want the world to help us, not hinder us, and that's magic. And both programmable matter and nanotechnology really offer that promise of a world which understands what you want and obeys demands.
Well, how far off is practical nanotechnology, do you think, and how far off is practical manipulation of things at the atomic level? How separate are these technologies?
Well, they overlap in a way. Nanotechnology, strictly speaking, just means technology on the nanoscale. A nanometer is a billionth of a meter, and that's the size of molecules. That's the range, that's the realm where molecules have it. devices which change their substance in visible ways at room temperature. You need to be able to manipulate things on that level. And certainly that is one of the technologies that could make it easier to design and fabricate and even mass produce these programmable substances.
So nanotechnology then may just be a sort of a pavement on the road to real magic.
Well, I think the technologies is being complementary, and one of the things that's interesting, there have been a lot of books written about nanotechnology. The idea was first proposed in the late 80s. It has really caught on, and a lot of people have thought about it, have thought hard about what it's good for, what the perils are, and things like that. And I think that's all good. When you start talking about programmable matter, this is a very new idea. Quantum dots have only been around since the early 90s, and primarily they're only used. Their main uses today are in computing and to a more limited extent in optics. The larger material science applications of quantum dots have not really been explored. I think that's the real killer app. I think that's what quantum dots are going to be used for. But this is a very new idea.
Well, again, how separated in time do you visualize of atoms? His book is Hacking Matter. That almost seems to lend itself toward the negative side, doesn't it? But the programming, the manipulation of things at the atomic level, why, that'll bring an entire new world to us, folks. We'll continue to explore it in a moment. The manipulation of things at an atomic level will change every single aspect of our lives. It will put us in a new world, one in which everything is what we wish it to be. A world in which our entire environment, life evolves, whether they're even there or not. Every application you can imagine, and many you can't imagine, an entire life of things that are absolutely functional and almost real. I mean, to you, they'll be absolutely real. The average person will certainly get to the point where they don't differentiate, I would think, between that which is almost real and that which is real, except that they're using more of that which is almost real. It seems to me it'll sweep the globe, and then we'll have a globe of things that are functional and wonderful and magic and not quite real. And isn't that possible? It's got a better chance to spread than gray goo, I hope. That'd be the good side, right, Will?
Absolutely.
So we'll have this incredible world of things that aren't quite so. But they're wonderful anyway. You're a science fiction writer. Was Star Trek a reliable model, a real predictor of the coming future?
Oh, I don't think so. Star Trek makes a lot of things up willy-nilly. It's mainly there for entertainment. It's intended to be fun, and it's intended to convey a social message, certainly.
How did they get so lucky? I mean, a lot of what they did predict seems to be on the road.
Some of it is, and some of it isn't, sure. I think that Star Trek focused more on what we would like to have than on what was really possible.
Well, you remember, you watched Star Trek, right?
Oh, sure.
You remember Q.
Uh-huh.
Q was almost God, or was God, as far as we're concerned. He could manipulate things into being from seemingly nothing. Alchemy. I mean, that's basically what we're sort of talking about here, right?
Sort of, yeah. We can't really make things appear and disappear. If we had a wall that was made of programmable matter, we would maybe be able to make it invisible, but we wouldn't be able to make it intangible. You'd still feel the wall there no matter what you did.
Do you think we'll make it? And when I asked that, I asked him about suggest that we are kind of a right now. And then he envisions type 1, type 2, type 3 civilization. Number 3 being a bunch of cubes on the ground. And better. But we're type 0 right now, and he says the chances of making it on the cusp of that, we're certainly close to type 1 or
harder to predict the food effect. So we don't necessarily know what's going to bite us or when or how. That's kind of a daunting concept. But we're not helpless. We're not at the mercy of forces that are beyond our control. These things are under our control.
One of the great applications of nature regards to things that you talk about would be manipulation of magnetism. Sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Big time app.
Right now, when we build magnets, we're very, very limited by the kinds of atoms that we find in nature. Again, we have only 92 atoms on the periodic table that are stable that we can work with. And most of them are not strongly magnetic, and most of them, when you assemble them together into bulk substances, are not strongly magnetic. With artificial atoms, with quantum dots, we can construct artificial atoms which have properties that don't occur in natural atoms. We can put in very large numbers of electrons. For example, we can make atoms that are not symmetrical. Normal atoms, natural atoms that we find, in any ordinary material, are spherical. The electric field of the nucleus is a sphere, and that defines the shape of the electron cloud. But we can make artificial atoms that are square, or pancake-shaped, or rod-shaped, or even asymmetrical, to create properties that don't occur in nature. And this will allow us to create very strong magnetic fields.
That's what I was going to ask. Super magnet? We could make a super magnet.
Absolutely. And with supermagnets, with magnetic fields that are much stronger than we can easily produce today, it will be possible to do things like, for example, counteract gravity. There was a picture that got circulated.
That's exactly where I was going, buddy. Exactly. Space travel. Space travel. It has application for space travel, doesn't it?
Certainly you can lift things with magnetic fields. And if you can lift things all the way off the Earth, then you can get to space.
To tell the story, I don't know. It looks as though they might have. They certainly might have. They were hopefully rescued. You can see people rushing to the edge of the carrier after this chopper went off into the sea, and so I'm sure the rescue efforts were immediate, although that is not apparent in the video. It's very short. But it's an incredible video. It's at artbelt.com. And then one more thing. We've put together a CD, actually a set of CDs, which memorialize this website. This website was one of the very first in America to be combined in the manner we did with a talk show, simply because the kind of material that we have here is difficult enough to explain to you with words. It's a little easier when you're able to see, actually see what I'm talking about. When I can put something up there and say, here, it's a ghost photograph, it looks like a ghost to me or whatever. Here it is, take a look. And so it was an obvious adjunct to the radio program, and it has been an invaluable tool to this radio program, as I'm sure Coast to Coast AM will be for George. Just absolutely invaluable, because frankly, the things we talk about here are kind of strange, right? So if you can put a photograph up of strange, then it's a little easier on the person trying to describe what's going on. Well, you can imagine we've collected a lot of photographs and information over the years, and we're going to try and take the very best part of it and put it on CD-ROM for you. And the opportunity to buy that collection is going to be over at 2 a.m. At 2 a.m. In other words, you've got a little over, 3.5 hours? A little over 3.5 hours to get up there and get that CD ordered. They will not accept orders after that. The website goes down, boom, at 2 a.m. Pacific time. A little over 3.5 hours. Gone, gone, gone. Really gone. Now, people might keep their eye on the website, though it will be gone. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll... Who knows what I'll do with it? Maybe I'll make it a ham radio site or something. I have no idea. I had thought of that. That's my big hobby. So I might do that, or I might do something else with it. I have no idea. But for now, we're going to point it toward the new URL, Coast to Coast AM so that people coming to my website will automatically, become forwarded and get used to the new website. But eventually, I have that URL. I own it, and I am going to keep it alive, keep it registered at the very least, and probably going to Coast to Coast AM for a period of time, and then who knows? Maybe a ham site, maybe something else. But we'll see. It's one of those ponderables of life. In a moment, we'll take a very quick look at what's going on in the world, and it's a pretty happening night. And then we will begin the process of predictions. But whatever you do, if you've not yet ordered those CDs, I'm not kidding when I say you have 3.5 hours plus a little to do it, and after that you can't. It will all be shut down. So if you want to order, get up to artbell.com right now. This is a very special CD. I will be signing the full sets, some of the others as well, autographing them, and this is your literal last chance. People think these offers go on and on. They don't. I think this is a real collectible. I mean, this really is something. In fact, all of these staff members and everybody else is getting a copy, and I think it's a gigantic keepsake as well as a big informational tool. So in 3.5 hours, that offer ends. All you can do is go to the website and order it right now at www.artbell.com. 3.5 hours plus a little, Fulton County. Well, all right, we've covered the fact that New Year's is coming, 2003 on the way, whilst I go. Let's look at a little bit of what else is going on, shall we? President Bush has said that any further attack by Saddam Hussein or any terrorist ally would, quote, cripple our economy, end quote, offering new justification for a potential war against Iraq, even though he said Korea's nuclear ambitions can be curbed without military conflict. Very interesting, huh? So I guess the president must presume that the Koreans will just say, okay, Mr. President, we're going to disassemble whatever we've got. We're not really going to use these fuel rods. And they're already starving to death up there, so I don't know what you do to the Koreans to get them to give it up. No idea. There's an Al-Qaeda link suspected in the Yemen slayings. Interrogators suspect the man accused of killing the American missionaries at a Baptist hospital may have ties to Al-Qaeda. FBI agents are expanding their search for a group of foreign-born men, 5 of them, that they believe may have crossed into the U.S. illegally from Canada with false IDs. And, of course, the fear is terrorism. So I guess up to this hour, I don't have any news indicating they've been located. So everybody stay at alert level 1. An infantry division from Georgia has been dispatched to the Persian Gulf as part of the military's prep for the war with Iraq. The troops from the 3rd Infantry Division Mechanized received the prepare to deploy orders earlier in the week. And as I mentioned to you, stocks have peaked out here at year's end, making it a 3rd straight losing year for stocks. The longest such streak, by the way, in case you keep track of this kind of thing, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in the White House. Can you imagine that? The longest losing streak, 3 years in a row for the market since Franklin D. Roosevelt. All right. Predictions. Let me see. Prediction 1 made last year. 2 nuclear events would occur. Bonk. That's a bong, definitely. 2, that Greater China Corporation would be $1.75 by April 15th. I have no idea whether that's true or false. I'll leave that one blank. Number 3, Planet X. Info released on Planet X. Well, yes, of course, but from mainstream science, no. So I'm going to give it a bong. Well, you know what? There was the ABC story. I've changed my mind. Ding, 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 ding. Number 4, that wormwood would happen. Bong. The Big Bang. Number 5, there would be a depression in Europe. I'm going to ding that one tentatively. In fact, we're really almost having a worldwide depression right now. Number 6, that the U.S. would be in depression by May 31st, 2002. That gets a tentative ding. A lot of people are saying it may be a double-dip recession. And even though the experts are not yet using the word depression, it sure as hell feels like it out there. Anyway, we're going to pause here at the bottom of the hour. There are the first 6 predictions.
To reach our toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903.
Listen to the words very carefully. Exactly what it means to me and the things I believe. And guess what? Here is Crystal Gale. Crystal, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you.
Gosh, it's good to have you back on the air again. It's good to hear your voice.
Oh, it's good to hear you.
Listen, you know, this record, this song, it began to mean more. And of course, music does that to you as time goes on, but it meant more, and it meant more, and it meant more to me. And I would, at the end of each week of broadcasts, that would be the way I would end the broadcast with by playing that entire record.
Well, you know, you and your show inspired so much for this song. You know, it's
Thank you.
you know, this song definitely means a lot to me, and I love singing it. I love the feel of it and what you can take.
I have heard from time to time in concerts that you've been singing this.
Oh yes. I love it.
It's totally awesome, and as I say, not just the tune, but the song. There's such deep meaning in it for me, and it hit me like a brick as time went on. Sometimes I'm a little slow, but boy did it hit me, Crystal. Yikes.
Well, you know, it's a song that, well, your show, I mean, it means a lot to people. It has meant so much to so many different people that I've talked through the whole country, you know, and so I know, and that's what the song meant to me, what your show did, that's what it came out.
That's right.
We're all searching for something.
Yes, we are. And I, you know, I mean, it's just so dead right all the way through. We may be moving too quickly. We are in kind of a quickening, aren't we?
Hell yes, definitely.
Think how the world has changed, and the things we are concerned about today versus what we were concerned about when we were young.
Oh, I know. And then, you know, you read about what the weather's doing all over the world, and then what the flooding that hasn't happened in years and years and years. And you think, well, you know, I think your book is coming true.
Yeah, it is indeed coming. And by the way, that book, Global Superstorm, is about to be a movie.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. That's really neat. Hey, you haven't cut your hair, have you?
No, not yet. I've been itching it back, you know.
Don't cut your hair. It's the same thing I tell Ramona. Don't you cut your hair. I love long hair, and you're the queen.
Well, you know, it was just something I started with. You know, I had long hair as a kid, and first, my mother always kept my hair really, really, really short because she worked and she couldn't take care of it. So, you know, she'd send me off to school, or my sisters would, and, you know, they wouldn't comb it or anything. So she kept it short so it looked halfway decent because she wasn't there. She was a nurse, and she'd work the midnight shift a lot. So, you know, when I could grow my hair, I wanted hair to put in a ponytail. So that's why I have long hair.
Well, I cannot tell you how I appreciate everything you've done. Your visits out here, the song, my gosh, Crystal, thank you. On behalf of everybody who's enjoyed it, and believe me, you know, I get a million requests for that song.
Well, you know, it's a way of saying thank you to you because I've enjoyed your show, and like I said, there's so many people that their heart is broken that the show is not going to be, you're not going to be there. So, but I know we go on to other things. There's a higher calling.
We do,
That.
we do, and the old one door closes, another door opens, and believe me, I'm all the way through another door already. So my life will be busy and full and rich, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter.
Well, I'm excited for you, and I'm gonna miss this part, but I know it'll be rewarding in others. But I just wanted to wish you a happy New Year.
And the very same day, it's already the New Year there, isn't it?
Yes, it is in Nashville. It's
came in safely, I trust.
Yes, everything went well.
Super.
And I hope it does in your area too.
Okay. Good night, Crystal, and not goodbye, just good night, and thank you so much.
Oh, good night to you.
Good night.
Thank you.
What a sweet, sweet, sweet lady. That's Crystal Gale. And she has the prettiest, longest hair you've ever seen in your whole life. We've had, I think I've had various photographs of Crystal up from time to time, and oh my goodness. See, she trims what she has to so she doesn't trip. That's how long Crystal's hair is. All right, let me review a few more predictions made for 2002. I'll never get through them. Number 7, that President Bush would be out of office by mid-year. Bonk. That was a hopeful prediction, I suppose, on somebody's part. Let's see. Dr. Kaku becomes the next Carl Sagan. Well, perhaps not as nationally recognized yet as being in that spot, but I'm digging that one because he sure is. He's the closest thing to Carl Sagan we've got right now. Number 9. I'm going to be liberal. Give you guys the benefit of the doubt. Number 9, that a North Pole civilization will be found. Wrong. Number 10, that the S&P 500 will go up at least 208. I think that's a bong. I don't think much good happened in the markets, but I could be wrong. If I'm wrong on these, I stand to be corrected. Number 11. That there would be suicide bombers in Times Square at the New Year. An obvious bonk. Thank God. Number 12, that America will become isolationist. Well, you know what? Ding ding.
Is running. Once they've listened to it on a number of occasions, they get accustomed to it.
You make a good point. You make a very good point. And it may be that maybe part of the underlying mission of this program, and or why it was allowed to flourish in the manner it was to prepare people for something of this magnitude.
That has occurred to me many times, Art, and it's part of what makes me say that there's been no human being who's lived on this planet who has made a greater contribution to the field of ufology and UFO research than Art Bell.
Well, that's very kind. But what about Peter Davenport? What will Peter Davenport do forward from this moment? Are you going to stay in ufology squarely planted? What's going to happen?
I'm afraid, I regret to have to report, I probably will. There's some days when I wish I'd never heard of a hotline dedicated to taking UFO reports, but I think I am hooked, intellectually hooked.
Well, it's like radio, Peter. It really is. You see, you never get out of radio. You never get out of ufology either. I mean, what are you going to do? Start casting your eyes to the ground and stop looking up? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And it is the ultimate question, ultimate scientific question. Do we live in a universe? Do we live in a galaxy that has other intelligent life? I think the clear-cut answer to that one is we almost certainly do. In fact, just a couple months ago, Seth Shostak, who's been on your program several times with the SETI project, started a talk-off at the University of Washington by asking the audience, he posed a question to the audience.
Very quickly.
How many of you think there's intelligent life here? About 60% of them said yes. Even he agreed with that.
Well, that's quite an admission for Seth. Listen, brother, I want to thank you for calling in.
I thank you, Art, and again, thanks for years of excellent coverage on this field.
You've got to take care, my friend.
Good night and good luck.
Good luck. racing through these or we're not going to make it. Number 18, made last year. China and U.S. to go to war by July, a bonk. I have so much I could say about these, but I better do it fast. Number 19, there would be a biological attack at the Winter Olympics, bonk. 20, that there would be another plane blown up. I believe that's a bonk. Now, they took a shot at one with some missiles, but terrorism, I don't think so. Bonk. 21, the Catholic Church to resurge. I believe that's a bonk. The scandals continue. Number 22 and number 23, made by two people in a row, that by July there would be a great revival in spiritual matters. I'm not sure how to score that one. I'm going to give it a bonk. I'll give it a ding and a bonk. I don't know. Number 24, a vast increase in UFOs and abductions, and I believe that's a ding. That's number 24. I'm going to say ding. There is certainly a vast increase in UFO sighting. 25, that there would be a near-Earth asteroid detected. That's a definite ding. There were a couple of those. Number 26, that Ellen DeGeneres would take over the Tonight Show. I think that's a bonk, right? She's not there. Number 27, that it would actually be a calm, ho-hum year. I'm giving that one a bonk. There was nothing calm about 2002. Number 28, there would be a disaster in Mexico, and the border would close between the U.S. and Mexico. Bonk. There might have been a disaster. I don't believe the border closed. Number 29, George Bush to lead us to prosperity. Bonk. Sorry, George. Number 30, Israel will find the Ark of the Covenant. And I believe that is clearly a bonk. A lot of people think it's up there on Ararat, but I don't think anybody, brought any boards back yet. 31, Russia and the U.S. would cooperate more fully. I think that's clearly a ding. Certainly we are doing that.
They actually want to try to unite with the North, but then there's still the older generation that can remember the battle.
You know what I've always thought, Christine? I've always seen South Koreans who are famous for having riots and throwing Molotov cocktails. A lot of the students who want unification, they should be very careful what they wish for, but they're so violent about it that a lot of times I thought, you know what? They ought to just let them all mass up there by the border, and then just wait for the right moment, open the border, and let them all go north.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Actually, my boyfriend's in the military here too, and he's like, all the military people, we want to go home. We want to go back to the States, right? So we should just let them have their own country back and let North Korea take over, and then we'll just see where it goes from there.
How long have you been in Korea?
6 months.
6 months. What's it like? Is that your first trip overseas?
Yeah, it's my first trip. Well, I had been to Switzerland before because I have some family there, but it's my first trip to Asia. And it's great. I'm on a year contract to teach English, but I might end up renewing and staying another year.
Oh, no kidding. I spent 10 years of my adult life in the Far East, predominantly on Okinawa, so I'm very familiar with it. It's a gigantic culture shock, and you sound like you're doing very well. Teaching English is a great thing to do over there, and a very good job.
Yeah, it pays well too, so that does not hurt.
All right, you want to give me some sort of official prediction for next year?
Well, I wanted to, maybe just wishful thinking, but I wanted to predict that North Korea is not going to drop a nuke on us. I think that with the talks that are going on, at least officially between the governments, that the South will end up either maybe coming to an agreement with the North or something, and almost trying to get the U.S. out of here. I know that when this president was elected, he was elected mostly because of his anti-American sentiment.
All right, listen, I've got to go because we're right here at the bottom of the hour, but thank you.
east of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may recharge at 1-775-727-1222 or use the wildcard line at 1-775-727-1295. To recharge on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T.
There were some real doozies out there. Number 47, that computers become aware. Mine hasn't. And I don't think it generally have yet. Thank God. At number 48, there would be spiritual revolution would occur. Well, I think there's been an uptick, but a revolution, I'm going to give that a 1. That's number 48. And now, in a moment, back to your predictions for the coming year. You only get to make one. It gets assigned a number and duly recorded, put in the Bell family vault. And then next year, we'll find a way to review them one way or the other for you. Drive over Georgeville or whatever. And I've got another answer to, I've got a lot of questions coming in by computer, so I'll try and address them as best I can. All right, many people asking, what are you going to do now, Art? What's your next project? Well, I don't know, I have many things in mind. This comes from Anchorage, from Camille in Anchorage. Of course, radio is inevitable, and you don't quit nor do you retire in the true sense of the word from radio. I own, along with my beautiful wife, KNYE FM here in Las Vegas. Las Vegas, and we are developing this radio station and we're having a blast. Now, it is the dream of most radio guys, gals, guys, to own someday a radio station. My God, I got ground zero when I began this project, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. It took that long, and it's a labor of absolute love. We spent a lot more money than we should have on it. Did everything just right. We just dearly love this radio station, and so we're going to devote a lot of time to that. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to do that. To me, radio is plain old dish fun. So there'll be a lot of that. And then if you happen to get in the Southern Nevada area and get a chance, give us a listen. 95.1 here in Nevada. It's really quite something. I'm very proud of this radio station, and so it's the dream of a lot of radio people, and I got to achieve that. I'm very blessed. I really did. Very blessed. I have had, as I said, I think a little earlier, a longer national network radio program career than 99.99% of people in radio. I mean, that's blessed. And then to be able to top it off with owning your own and running your own radio station, it's a joint effort. And by the way, I'll let my wife have a word with you after midnight tonight, after the new year, and process the Pacific time zone event, an event that will occur in slightly less than 17 minutes. And I'll let her have a word with her. She has a beautiful radio. It's absolutely beautiful. We both have been to some degree stricken with colds, but nevertheless, her voice remains resonant, absolutely charming. So let her have a word with you after midnight hour here. In the meantime, back to the international line. You are on the air, and where are you calling from, please?
I'm calling from the other corner of the arena down in the southeast corner in Busan.
Oh, really? Welcome to the program. Glad to have you. Gee,
On the radio networks.
Well, he'll be back very shortly. In the meantime, I'm Ramona Bell, and I've already given you my prediction for 2003, and I'd like to share a few thoughts with everyone. Basically, there are a lot of wonderful people who got this show off the ground and on a roll. Basically, I was there from the Atlantadays, and I watched it literally grow and mushroom and
blossom into the program that it is. And though a lot of people became involved in making Coast to Coast what it is, only one person gave it the heart that it needed. It not only had the right bit of intellect and the spark and the charisma that makes a program like this fly, but it also takes a lot of heart and a lot of devotion and a lot of belief that it can work. And Art really devoted a lot of time to this program. People you just don't know.
Bitch, you do this every morning.
And in remembering this is how he does all of his projects.
All right, so let's see it. Why did this fucking light change?
That he does, and sometimes it can be a little bit bewildering and somewhat frustrating if I don't understand it. But after a while, I get used to the idea, and it works. It works very well because I found out that I have my niche, actually a very, very hefty niche. It's my half.
5 minutes of time wasted.
And I'm shouldering it as well as I can at this point. We are starting to like only being early history by offering commercial music all 2002. And now we're going to find out if 2003 will be just as nice by selling commercials. And I'm finding my niche by doing all the traffic and writing some of the commercial spots and voicing some of the commercial spots. And I'm getting a little bit better. I'm finding out that my voice is not that bad. It's actually pretty cute.
Well, tell that part.
But personally, I wanted to tell you, I love you, baby. And we are not going to sit on rockers on the porch and just let the days roll by. No, we're going to be both very busy, and no, he's not going to get bored. Not ever when I'm around. Have a happy New Year, everyone.
All right, I think I'd better review a few more of these, or we'll never get through them. Number 49 from last year, there'll be a civil war in the U.S. Bonk. Number 50, the dead return to life. Number 51, Yasser Arafat to be assassinated. I'm sure it was considered. 52, there'll be an oil fire in Texas. Well, I'm not sure about that one. I'm tempted to ding it speculatively because there usually is some sort of oil fire there. Number 53, Ed Dames will remote view love. That's an interesting target. I don't believe that he ever has. I'm going to bonk it. Number 54, by April 20th, 300 million people will be dead. Bonk. Number 55.
About that, if you're interested.
Oh yeah, let me tell everybody that at the same time. Of course, I will retain both of my email addresses forever. One of them is artbell@mindspring.com, and you feel free, please, to send me any email you wish. artbell@mindspring.com or artbell@aol.com. Both of those email addresses will remain active for as long as I live.
Yeah, I had some information over for her wife Ramona, since she's into gardening. I have some information on that that accelerates the gardening effect.
Okay.
Growing effect, okay.
All right.
And as far as the prediction,
yes, sir.
Both everybody gave her. I had two. One was on Korea, the other one was on your back.
Well, let's go with Korea.
No, I don't have. I said they already said it. So my last one is. Third one is that Crystal Gale will sing to you live in person.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a good one. All right. Thank you very much from Munich, Germany. Of course, that was really wild. She came out here. Crystal loves the desert. And Crystal came out here with that CD in her hand before anybody else had heard it, other than those immediately with her. Let's see if I got this down. That's number 20. And it was an amazing day. It was just an amazing day. I mean, Ramona was here, Crystal and her husband were here, and we sat in the living room, and she handed me this CD and said, milliseconds. And I just flipped. I mean, I just absolutely flipped out. And then, as I told Crystal earlier in the show, I progressively flipped out more and more as the meaning and the words and the whole song sunk in. I flipped out. I mean, it's so total. And it's a very concerning sound. And I know a lot of people will say Boulder Dash, but this is represented indeed to be what those scientists recorded. Now, the Reuters news story went on to document the fact that after scientists recorded the sound, they all took off. They quit the project, the hole was closed, and they fled. And I believe all of that to be accurate. This is said to be that sound. What would you have done had you been one of them? Do the same thing. Pack it up, close it up, and get the hell out of there. Appropriate usage of the word. Number 70, made for ding, 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 ding. Number 76, Yasser Arafat forced from office. I believe that's a general ding. Number 77, a big earthquake in Seattle. Well, I don't think... What? Big. Define big. 7 or better? I don't think so. Bonk. The Mississippi floods, not so far this year, as far as I know. Bonk. Number 79, new energy source discovered. Bonk. Number 80, a dam will be blasted in India. I think that's bonk. Number 81, there'll be a big earthquake in Finland. I think bonk. Number 82, that 2002 would be a pivotal year. Well, I don't know how to rate that one. I'll give it a ding. Most years are pivotal. 83, U.S. reinstates the draft. That would be a bonk. Doing pretty well here. 84, people will care more for each other. I think that's been a general truth since 9/11, don't you? Ding. Number 85. Kathleen Townsend becomes the first woman president. Well, I have not noticed that occurred. Bonk. Number 86. I'm having a hard time reading. Something goes active with signal. And I'm sorry, I can't read my own writing. Isn't that embarrassing? Unrated. Number 87. A earthquake 30 miles south-southeast of St. Louis in the 5.8 to 6.0 range. That might have occurred. I'm not sure about that one. I'm going to leave that a question mark. That might, I heard something about that. Number 88. That's really a long time on the radio, and up above 530 affiliates, and it's just astounding what's happened. In my wildest dreams, this could never have happened. and yet it did. So many things did. Let me review some more of the predictions made for 2002. Generally not a very successful year for all of you out there in predicting, but hey, that's the way it goes. A year before it was very good, incidentally. Let's see how we do. Number 111 made last year. Terrorism will end when immigrants are deported. You know, that's a bonk, but it's getting close to a ding. Number 112, that we would reach 750 affiliates. No, not even Rush is there. Or close. 113, there would be a new constitution. Thank God it's a bonk. Number 114, Ed Days is revealed to be a disinformation agent. Well, I wouldn't think that, but that's bonk. 115, airport security. Turns out to be a farce. Well, 116, people will become more intuitive. Now, I believe that's a ding, actually. 117, Packers versus the Rams in a playoff game, and Packers win. God, I can't remember. Packers and the Rams? I don't remember. 118, a vaccine for AIDS. Well, there have been several, but none that I'm aware of that actually have declared totally successful, so I'll bonk that. 119, a Seattle earthquake. Well, a lot of people thought that, didn't they? And that would be a trigger for more, extending all the way to Yellowstone. Thank God, a bonk. 120, global war. Thank God, a bonk. Let's see. Number 121, quickening continues. A definite big time ding, ding, ding. 122, a cure is found for the atmospheric difficulties we have right now. I'm sorry, that's a bonk. Wish it were true. Number one, at least publicly, there's nothing. Number 123, scientists clone an extinct animal. I think we're pretty close to that, but I'm going to have to declare it a bonk, and that completes the predictions made for 2002, as I promised I would do. That was as many as we made over several days, actually. 123 of them, so there you have it. We are at number 29 presently, so let's get back to it, shall we? On the international line, you're on the air. Hello there, where are you calling from?
Hello, it's Jeff from the UK.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Great, thanks. I actually have a prediction for a friend of mine who, he's just entering retirement after 15 years in the radio broadcasting business, showing over 530 affiliate episodes. Well, I reckon he's going to build a time machine. What do you think of that?
Well, I'll tell you this. If I could, I would. And if I can, I will. How's that?
Pretty good. Well, it's been great having you back on my show anyway.
Take care, my friend.
Bye then.
Bye-bye. Turn those time machine now. I just told him the way it is. I would. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Where are you, dear? First time caller, area 7572712. I have to bleep. Now I'm gonna have to bleep that out because we're not allowed to put last names on the air. So let's try it all over again. What's your first name only?
Dave.
Dave. Okay, Dave. Do you have a prediction?
Yes, I predict there will be more car accidents this year than ever before.
Really? Why do you believe that would be true?
I don't know. I just came up with it. And it said it's great.
More car accidents than ever. That's an amazing prediction, actually. All right, we'll see how you do.
Okay.
Thank you. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. I got a question, but the thanks I'd like to give are more important to me than this whole prediction.
What's more important?
The thanks.
Oh.
We'd all like to give you.
Well, thank you.
More important. The whole
request, and for all of you, I would ask that you bear with George as he grows into the program. That's something that happens. You don't do this kind of program. You don't get comfortable doing this kind of program overnight. That doesn't happen. Even if you've been broadcasting for years and years and years, when you walk into something like this cold, you've got a pretty big learning curve ahead of you. And George is going to go through that, and so you will watch George grow, I am sure, with this radio program. And so I hope there will be forbearance out there, and all of you will continue to enjoy the radio program. The radio station that I have here, KMYE, will continue to carry Coast to Coast AM. I hope you all enjoy the new website, coasttocoastam.com. And in fact, after the 2 o'clock hour, in those few moments remaining, we will point our URL so that it bounces you to the new Coast to Coast AM website. And I hope you enjoy that. That also will be a work in progress. I mean, everything is a work in progress. It's a little hard for me to imagine not being here on the radio with you on a nightly basis, but I do look forward to being with you occasionally when George needs a little bit of time off or a special occasion arises or whatever it may be. I'm sure you will hear from me again. So this is not the long kiss goodnight. This is not the goodbye that so many of you are thinking that it is. And I guess in a sense it is, but it's not. It's not that you're not going to hear from me again, because you will hear from me again. You're on the air at Coast to Coast AM. Hello there. Where are you calling from, please?
This is AT&T message delivery with a prepaid message from someone who tried to call you but couldn't reach you. You will be able to hear them.
Do the wild thing at 775-727-1295. No. See. Somebody sent a prepaid message and put their first name and last name and telephone number on there, and I'm not about to air that. Too bad. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
A safe, happy, and prosperous New Year to the United States of America from Her Majesty the Queen's Canadian realm, the Dominion of Canada.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I have a prediction.
Sure.
I believe Rael, the Raelians, the Raelian compound in Quebec, the Raelian bishop, Brigitte Boisselier, and the clone child Eve will all be caricatures in the next Austin Powers movie, Attack of the Clonades.
Do you really want to make that prediction? Or do you
Yes, I do. I can see that happening.
All right, it's number 34.
A happy New Year again, and we'll miss you, and God save the Queen.
Take care, my Canadian buddy. Wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
CQ, Kingdom of Nye.
Yes, sir. West of the Rockies, call toll-free 1-800-618-8255. I'm sorry, I've got to bleep that out, too. Obviously, giving out your ham call would lead to people being able to get your name and address. You don't want that here on the air, believe me. So your name is Ryan, you're ham. And you want to make a prediction?
Yeah, it's one that was covered last year, and I don't remember it being covered, but I came up with it at the beginning of the night. And come the end of next year, I still think we will have not found bin Laden.
Really? Another year goes by and no bin Laden, huh?
Sadly so. Whether or not we proved he's alive or not, I couldn't tell you, but I don't think we will have found him.
You know, you know what I think? I think that if bin Laden is dead, you could well be correct, because it may be that in order to just keep the world on edge for as many years as possible, if bin Laden died, it may be his Al-Qaeda people would bury him in Naris and not say one word, and just sort of let the world think that this terrorist continues to exist. It would be in their interest as terrorists to continue the terror, right?
Oh, exactly. And not only that, if he's been gotten already, you know, who's to know for sure?
Yeah, quite correct.
You know, they could do something like that, or he could be gone and there could be no evidence left of him.
Yep, quite correct.
And I'm enjoying the chat tonight. Go to talk.com with Keith and all the folks there, and we all wish you well. And 73, my friend.
Take care. Good night. Go to Talk is a new web endeavor that covers all of talk radio that Keith has unveiled, and many of you who have received or will be receiving, I guess more accurately, the CD, I think, get a 60-day tryout of it. It's kind of neat. Most of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. All the best to you and Ramona and your whole family for the new year.
Thank you, sir.
This is Richard calling from from Las Vegas at KEWN.
That's the way to do it. Yes, sir. That's my old alma mater.
Absolutely. I have a prediction, and my prediction is that, as you probably know, we're going to be going outside of the country for gold in the next year. And my prediction is that outside countries, specifically the ROC, Republic of China, will put the squeeze on us manufacturing-wise, and that we will have to, in order to remain a superpower, bring that kind of manufacturing back to the United States.
It's not going to happen.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I went to China, sir, and it scared the hell out of me. I went up into the economic zone, Shenzhen, and the amount of commerce going on. I mean, I drove by 40 miles of factories, just like in the what's now the Rust Bucket here in the U.S. I drove by 40 miles of factories, and I saw more trucks than I've ever seen, you know, semis in my entire life. The amount of commerce going on there, the amount of factories, the amount of work going on was frightening, and that was years and years ago. I'm talking to people who've been over since, and they say what I saw was nothing compared to what's going on now.
Well, you know that they own 51% of every business that comes into China.
Yeah.
So that puts us at quite a disadvantage economically and in terms of our own American businesses.
You're really raising a good point. Everybody had better keep their eye on China, because if they don't trouble us militarily, and of course there could always be trouble over Taiwan, you can't rule that out, they definitely are going to trouble us economically. China is going to be running the world, and so we're going to have to figure out some way to either join with them, to get them to slowly come out of their communist ways and join with the rest of the world, or we're going to find ourselves at war with them.
Well, after many years of gung fu training and knowing the Chinese people, I don't see that happening.
I think it's gung ho and kung fu, isn't it?
Yeah, or gung ho fat choi, which will be in February. All the best. See you in the future.
You take care, my friend. See you on the other side. You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Where are you calling from, please?
Hi, Art. I'm calling from Seoul, South Korea.
Seoul, South Korea. Okay, I'm out of time, so give me one prediction very quickly.
Military action coming up in the next year. The United States will not achieve its objective.
In Korea?
In two places.
Two places.
Korea and
a lot of people are saying that. All right, my friend, thank you very much. The last call being from Seoul, Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for all of the years of company that we have kept with each other, and you will hear me from time to time. For now, from the high desert, good night.
alternate coming out of the northeast and north side drive out of the northwest. Meanwhile, we're seeing the first impact on the riding from the northern suburbs, Andrew Seco.
Now, we are seeing a little bit of a delay spot here, 75 south, ramming on a 285, seeing the brake lights as you pass Delp Road, exit 261. Same story, 85 south, taking you back towards Pleasantdale Road, exit 96, and seeing the volume out of Duluth, 85 south, you're on and off that pedal from Pleasant Hill Road down to Indian Trail Road, exit 101. This is sponsored by Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Learn more about the sport of common threads and nutrition education at anthem.com/stream. Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield is the trade name of Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Healthcare traffic.
34 degrees in Peachtree City, 36 in Austell, it is 36 degrees in Brookhaven. So a chilly start this morning, but I do have good news. It's going to be a beautiful day today. A mix of sun and clouds, and the sunshine warming us up to a high of 66. That's on par with the average high for this afternoon. Lows tonight in the low 50s, clouds rolling in tomorrow. An isolated rain shower can't be ruled out, high near 70. Sunday, it'll cool down. Morning low 49, afternoon high 57. Cloudy skies on Sunday with off and on rain showers throughout the day. Meteorologist Christina Upwards, 95.5 WSB.
Those fireworks in the sky over Florida last night, pretty, but marking a big setback. Another for SpaceX. That's going with Atlanta's Morning News continues in 2 minutes at 6:37. Got a leaky pipe? Ace Hardware Home Services is around the corner with everything you need to fix it. Anyway, I mean, how did you hear about it and dive into it?
Well, I think it was love at first sight. Well, I guess truthfully it was love at second sight. The first time that I heard about artificial atoms was in 1993. There was a rumor floating around on the internet that somebody was tinkering with artificial atoms. And there was a lot of bunk floating around on the internet at that time. A lot of false rumors and really garbled information. So I didn't put a lot of credence in it at that time. But later on in 1997, I encountered the idea again in a book called The Quantum Dot by Richard Burton, and talked about this new kind of transistor called the quantum dot and all the things that it was good for. It really talked about the quantum dot as though it were a transistor, as though it were primarily intended for different kinds of computing. What he mentioned in kind of an offhand way, think about artificial atoms. Electrons in and out of the artificial atoms, change the things we wanted, and the fact that they can interact with each other, artificial molecules. And he mentioned in a very breezy, offhand way that this had potential implications for creating new materials.
And that wasn't.
Now, I'm an engineer. As an aerospace engineer, I'm very interested in new materials. We're always limited in almost any field of engineering. We're limited in what we can do by the materials that are available. So this idea immediately tickled my fancy as an engineer, and as a science fiction writer, perhaps even more so, because I was looking at that time for ideas which sounded outrageous and even funny, but which at heart were physically possible. And this idea of it occurred to me that if you had these quantum dots, you could pump electrons in and out of them and create artificial atoms that would change on demand. And if you just put enough of this stuff together, you could create programmable matter. And the idea was perfect for the story that I was writing, which later became the opening section of my novel, The Collapsium.
What was the Collapsium?
Well, The Collapsium is kind of a fairy tale that's set in the future. Arthur C. Clarke, back in the 60s, stated that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this is something that a lot of science fiction writers have taken to heart. But the more I thought about that, the more I thought, well, if you have enough technology kicking around that really starts to look like magic, then the world that this technology brings about ought to look a lot like a fairy tale. So I decided I was going to write a fairy tale that was set in the future that relied not on magic,
seems to me that's the point.
That's one of the points of the realm. Yeah, there are other ones. There are things that are very difficult to produce. One of them that gets used in the story is neutronium, which is a form of matter where you take the electrons around the atom, you use them all the way down into the nucleus. So the electrons and protons are forced together and become neutrons.
Yeah.
This is a form of matter which is very dense, and in nature it's only found in neutron stars, which are extremely dense stars that are found far away. But there are potential industrial uses for it in the future as well. And that's a material which is very difficult to do. It requires enormous amounts of energy. So that's another potential point of the realm. And antimatter is another thing.
Well, I was going to say, couldn't you construct, if I'm thinking about this correctly, couldn't you attempt to construct a black hole, for example?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's another thing that they do in the collapsing.
There are people working on making black holes right now, and it's worrisome.
It is and it isn't. If you make a very, very small black hole, people have this vision of black holes as these all-consuming monsters that, they devour light, they devour matter.
Well, they do, don't they?
They can, yes. If they're very, very small, though, if they're smaller than a proton, this proton being, the basic unit of an atom,
yes,
basically. If you have a black hole that's smaller than a proton, then that black hole is not capable of swallowing the proton. The proton won't fit through the hole, if you see what I'm saying.
So you would only create a really teeny black hole.
Right, and this very, very teeny black hole is, for the most part, incapable of doing the kind of damage that people are afraid of.
What have you done? If you create an atomic-sized black hole, if you actually manage to do that, what would you potentially unleash? Would you unleash nothing? I mean, what would you have achieved?
Well, you have the potential to manipulate space-time. Very, very strong gravitational fields alter the properties of the space around them. One of the things...
we're talking about something like time travel, for example.
I'm not sure about time travel.
Well, you said time space.
That was problematic for a lot of reasons, but you mentioned the speed of light.
You said time space. Manipulate time space, right?
Space-time.
Space-time, all right, space-time. If you can do that, then why not?
It's pretty easy to go forward in time. There are a lot of ways to go forward in time at a faster rate. Going backward.
Well, that's not travel.
Sure, that's time travel.
That's the beginning. I know there's another argument about returning in time, but you are suggesting, though, that forward time travel, for example, could be a product of the creation of black holes.
Very definitely. And what we find using those theories is that as you get close to a very, very
wrote a book that you should be interested in right now called Hacking Matter. That's what we're really talking about tonight. He works in aerospace and he writes science fiction. And that's a very, very interesting, intriguing, combustible combination, really, because you can imagine the things that you can write about quite readily, and they're probably in line with what could become reality. Now, we're pretty well out on the cliff. We're going to go to the phones here in a minute, but I do have to. I can't resist this. In all of the world, time travel is probably my favorite subject and dream, I guess. And you said something intriguing. You said forward time travel. Yes, it certainly might be possible. Well, in forward time travel, you don't have this terrible paradox problem, do you? Because nothing you could do in the future would affect the past.
Right.
Because, you're on a different timeline.
You're in the future of that timeline, yes.
So we don't have this seemingly insoluble problem. Are you one who believes that reverse time travel, even with sufficient amounts of energy, would not be possible?
Well, I don't think that physics prohibits it per se. For example, there are physicists who will tell you that if you could travel all the way around the universe, if you could make sort of a giant loop around the universe and come back to the point where you started, that depending on the exact shape of the universe, you might come back to a time before you left. So I don't think that it's prohibited per se by the laws of physics, but I do think that in terms of practicality, we talked about being a type 0 civilization or type 1 or type 2, type 3 civilization. I think that the energies involved, the distances involved, it's a very, very difficult engineering problem, which I don't think that we will be solving anytime soon. Maybe when we're Q.
When we get to the Q level, huh?
Right.
Have you contemplated time travel? I would imagine most science fiction writers would have stumbled across thinking about the process anyway.
Yes, there's been a lot of time travel science fiction. I personally haven't written any. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I generally try to restrict myself, first of all, to stories that could actually happen. So I'd have to come up with a mechanism for the time travel work, and I haven't thought of one yet that I find sufficiently interesting and plausible. But also, there's already been so much written about time travel that I haven't really focused on that. I try to break fresh ground when I can.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a chance to break some fresh ground because I've got people who want to talk to you.
Okay.
How about that?
Sounds great.
That's fun. First on caller line, you're on the air with Will McCarthy. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Hey, I'm really glad to hear you on the radio tonight. Welcome back for a time.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Well, I've got a question for your caller. It's kind of coming down, not from time travel, but having to do with the creation of molecules that don't exist in nature. I've been thinking lately that maybe it's possible to grow silicone crystals that are manipulated and to basically grow a solar panel in outer space and thereby kind of create maybe an endless solar panel and thus a vast source of energy. Is anything like that ever possible?
All right. Growing things in space is more than possible. They're now doing this glass work in space that'll absolutely blow your mind. You've got to read some of the latest stories. Pieces of glass so long in outer space that you couldn't see them, that they wouldn't be visible to the human eye, but yet they would be connected. Amazing things that apparently can be done in space.
Yeah, actually, back in the 70s, there was a guy named Gerard K. O'Neill who studied pretty extensively the idea of mining the moon for resources to build very large solar collectors in Earth orbit, and then gathering that solar energy and beaming it to the Earth in the form of microwaves, which we could then receive very efficiently.
A friend of mine wrote a book called Sunstroke. You ever stumbled across that one?
No, I haven't.
No. The concept, Will, is that we can gather. We probably have the technology now to gather the sunlight in space and to microwave it back to Earth. Sunstroke embraced the whole concept and took it a step further. And unfortunately, the device that was beaming the microwaves back to Earth began to move.
No.
Yes, with rather predictable consequences. You know, microwaving as it went.
Sure.
Everything in its path. How does that concept get you?
Oh, I think it's very plausible. This is one of the reasons I think that we haven't done it yet. Another reason is the cost and the difficulty of doing it. And there's also kind of a skepticism factor. People tend to think of space as something that will happen in the future. They don't tend to think of it as something that we can be doing right now in a big way. We have the technology right now, as you say, to build very large solar panels in space, and even beam the power down to Earth. And if we're careful, we can build in the safeguards so that the beam doesn't wander away from where it should. We can build in sensors so that if the pointing of the satellite changes even a little bit, the beam shuts off.
Or else it's oops, goodbye Seattle.
Right.
Or
So
something.
yeah, you want to avoid those dangers. If you're careful at the start, it's not very difficult to avoid them, but it is difficult to overcome that skepticism factor. It's difficult to convince Congress that this is the year that we want to build giant solar power satellites. I think they're always going to say, well, maybe in 20 or 30 years we'll do that, but not this year.
This year it's not about oil. Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Will McCarthy. Hello.
Hi, Will. Some of your, this is Karen from Iowa. Listening on WMT. Your houses that you're talking about, how to manipulate sunlight and things, that sounds really neat. I had a challenge 25 years ago to design a house 50 years into the future in a college term paper type. And I really soul-searched on this, and I designed a house with 2 stories, with 3-foot concrete, had 4 windows in the house, but yet there was a window in every room, because the windows were on each corner. On the top of the house was a greenhouse, and solar panels on the sides, and a windmill to hook up your car.
Little biodome.
Yeah, a biodome. Now, some of the things you're talking about, I suppose you could incorporate that inside of the brick, but you'd have to have an escape route out of every room in case of emergency, or even getting furniture in and out, because it had an elevator. And the car of the future, or that I saw 120 years in the future, the cars were very small and they made very little noise, but there was 2 cars that flew down and actually had mechanical apparatuses that came out and it stopped it like a horse, like a gallop.
Okay, but my dear, what you're imagining in turn, the house you're describing, made of brick, mortar, you described windows, and you described machines, and these are all things that would be, and I understand how you wrote that, extensions of what we know today. Just made into this beautiful little wonderland, this biodome with the solar panels and all the rest. It's still a million miles away from what Will is talking about, which is another. Is it too much of a stretch, Will, to say it's another reality altogether? It is another reality, right?
I would say it's a bit of a stretch to say that it's another reality. It's a difference in the materials that we use. Right now, the materials that we use, we have to design them and we have to build them, and once they're made, they never change. In the future, we'll have materials that change on demand. It's not another reality, but it's a more efficient way of accessing the reality we live in. How's that?
Well, that's safer for the technology. I haven't asked this yet, but I should. This brick of raw material that we're hypothetically discussing here, all right, that can be manipulated at the atomic level, ordered, programmed to do whatever you want it to do, virtually. How, I mean, we'd have to have a lot of this stuff for it to be practical on a social, economic basis everywhere. We'd have to have so much of this material. As the science matures, how hard is it going to be to get and construct and get this raw clay from which everything will be designed?
Well, the raw materials to produce it are extremely cheap. We could produce it with the same kind of economies of scale that we produce computer chips today.
Really?
So in principle, they could be as cheap as computer chips. But when the transistor was first invented, it was a large, bulky, expensive device. It took quite a while before people figured out how to miniaturize it, how to put it in large numbers on a.
But see, this is what I was saying earlier in the show. Not really. I mean, from our perspective of humans who trudge around for 70 whatever years we get these days, and then it's gone. It's a long time. But if you look at the history of man, my God Almighty, from the beginning of computers till now is hardly a blink of an eye, my friend.
I agree with you. It's a historically sudden event, and I think we'll find the same with programmable matter. I think that from the time that we're able to demonstrate this brick in the laboratory until the time that it's commercially available and not terribly expensive, I think we'll find that that's a couple of decades, 2, maybe 3 decades.
Who do you envision as developing this technology? I mean, is this a natural for Bill Gates from where he is now to where he could be?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly who would focus on it. As I mentioned before,
who is focusing on it now, Will? I mean, is it past the talk stage at all? Is there anybody in a lab anywhere playing with this yet?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There are labs all over the world that are working with quantum dots.
So this is not such a dream. It's underway. The research is being done.
Research is being done now. There have been laboratory demonstrations that are extremely promising and really point the way to the future. The main thing that's constraining the research is that the people funding the research are government agencies that are very, very interested in quantum computing. And so they're throwing money at anything that has the word quantum in it. Quantum dots, definitely they want to throw some money there. The people as a laboratory for studying the electron. The chemists have a slightly different take on things. They use quantum dots for slightly different purposes with slightly different goals and intent, but still fundamentally they're interested in pure science.
You're probably not an economist, or whatever else you are. You're probably not an economist, but maybe you are. Okay, well, my question would be this. We have this great stock market bubble with everything.com, and with biotechs, we went nuts, and is the quantum thing coming in the marketplace, do you think? In other words, will people begin when they realize what, listening tonight, I mean, if you believe this can happen, then it's a world changer, and it's probably a pretty good investment. So will the time come when the world's eyes will open to quantum anything and people start throwing money at it?
Oh, absolutely. You see that already with nano anything. You've got all these venture capitalists that what they do is invest money in fledgling enterprises and then reap the rewards of that down the road. And a lot of those venture capitalists got burned on the internet stuff, so they're very leery of internet anything, of cyber anything, of electronic anything. But they still have money. They still want to do their jobs. They want to invest. They want to inspire the future. And what we're finding increasingly is that venture capitalists are throwing their money at anything that has the word nano in it. And exactly as you say, this quantum thing is not very far away from catching on in the same way. I've been approached by venture capitalists myself. One of the things that I did, being an engineer, as I got more and more into this technology, as I realized the material science implications, I started to think about how it could actually work. And so in conjunction with my business partner, Dr. Gary Snyder, we came up with a design, a practical way of producing this programmable matter. We took out a patent on it.
Oh.
And we've been approached...
Well, maybe you're the Bill Gates then.
Well, maybe. We've been approached twice by venture capitalists who said, I have $1 million, can you produce a product in 4 years? And the answer is no. The technology is nowhere near that level.
Well, you're supposed to be like everybody else and say, sure.
Well, I'm not going to take $1 million.
And then when you get 11 months down the line, you say we're having some difficulty with our
technical difficulties.
Yes.
No, we're much more than 4 years away from practical application.
One early application of quantum anything is computers, of course, right? And one intriguing thing that I've heard about the possibility of quantum computing is, and this is out there way on the edge again, I realize, that a quantum computer at some point perhaps would be capable of actually extracting information, will make it easy, for example, from the future or from another dimension altogether. I realize this is way out there, Will.
It is way out there, but extracting information from the future, I'm not so sure about. Extracting information from parallel universes, maybe. One of the things that a quantum computer does...
Well, that's almost as good as talking to an alien civilization.
In a very limited way, yeah.
It's plucking information from the ether, and we'd see it that way, as plucking it from the ether, only we'd be plucking it from another dimension where things perhaps are in a very different physical world. I mean, the possibilities are incredible.
Well, you're probably getting the information from the universe, which is exactly like yours.
I think so.
Except that there is a different pattern of numbers in your computer at that particular moment.
All right.
So it's a very, very limited kind of communication, but...
Yeah, but it would be at the beginning of something really big.
And quantum computers are another thing, which, they're not practical at this point, but they have been demonstrated in the laboratory. And the findings really are quite astonishing, that as weapons, for example, into an airport.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in this case, you wouldn't have to smuggle anything. This is one of the darker sides. You would simply take some of this material that had